Gareth Williams was born on the 26th September 1978 and worked at the UK's Government Communications Headquarters, GCHQ. He was seconded to the Secret Intelligence Service, also known as SIS or MI6, when he was found dead on the 23rd August 2010 in very suspicious circumstances in a flat in Pimlico, London. An original inquest found that his death was unnatural and likely to have been criminally mediated. However, a subsequent Metropolitan Police reinvestigation concluded that Williams's death was probably an accident, which, as you will hear, is a complicated deduction to agree with. From Anglesey, in Wales, Gareth was a mathematical genius who started university while still in secondary school and graduated with a first-class maths degree at 17. After gaining a PhD at the University of Manchester, he dropped out of St. Catherine's College at Cambridge University, believing they could not teach him anything more. He began working as a codebreaker at GCHQ in Cheltenham in 2002. This government service is a world-leading intelligence, cyber, and security agency aiming to keep the UK safe. In early 2010, he was seconded to the Secret Intelligence Service but had asked to return to GCHQ because he disliked the rat race, flashcar competitions, and post-work drinking culture. And, as a keen cyclist and walker, wanted to return to the countryside. On Monday, 23rd August 2010, police entered Williams's flat in Pimlico, London, for a welfare check after colleagues noted he had been out of contact for several days. His naked, decomposing remains were found in the bath, inside a red North Face sports bag that was padlocked from the outside, and the premises were declared a crime scene. After the investigation started, the heads of the Met Police and Secret Intelligence Service met to discuss how they would handle the situation and who would lead the investigation, given the top-secret nature of Williams's work. He had recently qualified for operational deployment and had worked with the U.S. National Security Agency and FBI agents. The U.S. State Department requested no details of Williams's work should emerge at the inquest. The Foreign Secretary at the time, William Hague, signed a public interest immunity certificate authorizing the withholding from the inquest details of his work and his joint operations with the U.S. Investigations showed no sign of forced entry into the flat, although the bag's padlock was locked on the outside and the keys were under the body. Inconclusive DNA fragments from at least 2 other individuals were found on the bag. However, it was concluded that there was no definite proof that a third party was present at his death. In fact, it would later be determined that one of the forensic scientists contaminated the DNA found on Williams's hand. The LGC Forensic Company apologized for its incorrect numerical data codes in a separate error. The Williams family alleged that the MI6 investigation failed and crucial evidence was withheld, leaving them with many questions. Their lawyer made the following statement.
Our grief is exacerbated by the failure of his employers at MI6 to take even the most basic inquiries as to his whereabouts and welfare, which any reasonable employer would have taken. We are also extremely disappointed over the reluctance and failure of MI6 to make available relevant information. We should like to ask the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Hogan Ho, to look into and review how this investigation will proceed in the light of the total inadequacies of the SO15 investigation into MI6 highlighted during this inquest. We would like to thank Detective Chief Inspector Jackie Sabiri's team for the thoroughness of her investigation during this traumatic time for us as a family. We would also express our appreciation to HM Coroner Dr. Fiona Wilcox and to her staff for their understanding of our position.
Coroner Fiona Wilcox said that there were no injuries on his body and no signs that he had been involved in a struggle. His body was also free of alcohol and common recreational drugs, which she said supported her assertion of third-party involvement in the death. Scotland Yard found no evidence of Williams's fingerprints on the padlock, the bag, or the bathroom. Therefore, the Met Police Deputy Assistant Commissioner Martin Hewitt asserted that it was theoretically possible for Williams to lower himself into the bag without touching the bath rim.
I'm not saying that it would be easy, and I'm not saying that everybody could do it, but really the line you have to get to is that theoretically this is possible to do.
Multiple experts discounted these bath and bag assumptions, showing that a lack of bath fingerprints and self-locking was impossible. Peter Falding, a confined spaces expert, conducted his own reenactment.
MI6 agent's naked body was found locked inside a red duffel bag.
The door was closed, the heating was up full in the middle of August, and the lights were out. And also there was a shower screen that was closed here. Most importantly, there was no DNA found on either the padlock, the zipper closures, anywhere around this bath.
In December 2010, police released very personal details stating that he had occasionally spent between 30 minutes and an hour on bondage websites, but added there was no evidence that he was, quote, obsessed with bondage, and no other explicit materials was found. However, they disclosed that his wardrobe contained 25,000 pounds of high-end women's clothing.
He'd visited bondage websites, gone to gay bars and bought tickets to drag shows. Police have revealed new details about the intensely private life of MI6 spy Gareth Williams, who was found dead in his London flat in August. Officers leading the investigation said that they hoped the information would help explain what happened to Mr. Williams, whose naked body was discovered tied up and locked inside a bag.
This was a murder inquiry, or at least it was an inquiry of a death that looked like a murder, and yet somebody was leaking this stuff constantly. You know, was it a dirty tricks operation by some agents of some other country, or was it some policeman who was in the pay of some media empire or something? Who knows? But whatever it was, it shouldn't have happened. I mean, this is something which should have been kept back as evidence.
In addition, the landlady of the annex flat he had rented in Cheltenham for 10 years said she and her husband had once found him, 3 years before his death, shouting for help with his hands tied to his bedposts. He said he was seeing if he could get free. They cut him free, believing this event was sexual rather than escapology in nature. At the coroner's inquest in March 2012, Anthony O'Toole, the lawyer for the family, ascertained that a second person was either present when Williams died, a so-called member of some agency specializing in, quote, the dark arts of the secret services, or someone broke in after the murder and stole items. However, there was no forensic evidence to support this view. Still, it was also noted that the door and locks had been removed by the time police experts had become involved, thereby destroying this line of inquiry. Additional evidence from experts, including Peter Falding, whom we heard from earlier, showed that despite over 400 attempts, they could not replicate locking themselves in a similar North Face bag.
He testified at the coroner's inquest that there is no way Williams could have locked himself inside the bag without leaving evidence. Using the same model of North Face bag and a similar type of tub, he shows us why.
So for Gareth to actually get into the bag, he's got to step over, even if he stepped over.
And he's roughly your height.
I'm 5'6", he's 5'7".
Okay.
I'm slightly stockier build, but I've actually got to get in shoulder first into the bag. So into there, I can't actually, I've got to actually touch something to actually fall myself back. So this is quite an important thing to note. You've got to touch something. He would have had to put his feet on the end of the bath to actually slide himself into the bag. But another key here was there was a scuff mark on the bath. Now when you take the actual bag, a scuff mark was found on the bath here. So my belief is that he was lifted, he was murdered, the bag was lifted, it scuffed the top, and he was dropped into the bath. With the heating up, the decomposition fluids would actually run down the plug hole, and it would stop this smell of decomposition escaping the flat.
So was this the perfect crime?
This was the perfect crime.
Pathologist Richard Shepard stated it was more likely that Williams was alive when he got into the bag due to the difficulty of arranging a corpse in the position in which his body was found. So how could there be no fingerprints on the bath, padlock, or bag. Another pathologist stated that he would have been overcome by elevated carbon dioxide levels after only 2 or 3 minutes. Fiona Wilcox, the coroner, said that she would follow the evidence wherever it led. As a side note, Fiona Wilcox was also the coroner for the death of William Broeksmit, an auditor at Deutsche Bank when the bank was underwriting the Danske Bank Estonia Russian money laundering operation. Journalist Duncan Campbell reported that the inquest evidence indicated Williams was one of a team of intelligence officers sent to penetrate US and UK hacking networks. As such, Williams attended the 2010 Black Hat and DEF CON conferences. Black Hat is a computer security conference that provides security consulting, training, and briefings to hackers, corporations, and government agencies worldwide. DEF CON is a hacker convention held annually in Las Vegas, Nevada. It features cybersecurity challenges and competitions, known as hacking war games. This duo of conferences is known affectionately as the Hacker Summer Camp. Fiona Wilcox further concluded that Williams's death was unnatural and likely to have been criminally mediated. She was satisfied that on the balance of probabilities, Gareth was killed unlawfully, and that another party placed the bag containing Williams into the bath and on the balance of probabilities locked the bag. Wilcox went on to confirm the findings of the pathologist, Peter Shepard, saying he was probably alive when he was put in the bag and died shortly afterwards from CO2 poisoning. However, she added that a short-acting poison could not be ruled out. She rejected suicide, interest in bondage or cross-dressing, or autoerotic activity being involved in Williams's death, stating his visits to bondage websites only occurred intermittently and were not of a frequency to indicate an active interest. She heavily condemned leaks about Williams' cross-dressing as a possible attempt at media manipulation. Her criticism was also aimed at the Met Police's Counter-Terrorism Command, known as SO-15, which failed to tell the senior investigating officers about the existence of 9 memory sticks and other property in Williams's SIS office, their failure to take formal Secret Intelligence Service officer statements, and the 7 days it took to report him missing. This caused extra anguish and suffering for his family, and undoubtedly led to the loss of forensic evidence.
The coroner concluded he was probably killed unlawfully, with poisoning and asphyxiation the foremost contenders. Coroner Dr. Fiona Wilcox said she found the lack of hand and footprints in Mr. Williams' bathroom significant, concluding that a third party moved the bag containing Gareth into the bath. She was also highly critical of the way the police and security services dealt with the death, highlighting mix-ups in DNA and evidence submitted late or mishandled. She speculated that leaks about his private life to the press were an attempt by some third party to manipulate the evidence. And she said security service involvement in his death remained a legitimate line of inquiry.
These inquest findings and intense criticism prompted a police reinvestigation, which lasted 12 months. Officers said they had been allowed unprecedented access to serving MI6 staff this time. Assistant Commissioner Martin Hewitt announced that despite a re-examination of all evidence and the investigation of new leads, no definitive answers had been obtained as to the cause of Williams's death, and the most probable scenario was that he had died alone in his flat in Pimlico, central London, as the result of accidentally locking himself inside the bag. In September and October 2015, Boris Karpichkov, a former KGB agent who defected from Russia and who now lives in Britain, stated during interviews that sources in Russia had claimed that the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, also known as the SVR, was responsible for Williams's murder. According to Karpichkov, the SVR tried and failed to blackmail him into becoming a double agent. In response to these SVR's attempts, Williams allegedly retaliated, claiming he knew the identity of a Russian spy inside the GCHQ. This meant that the SVR had no alternative but to exterminate him to protect their agent inside. Karpichkov further claimed that Williams was killed by an untraceable poison introduced in his ear. Interestingly, 2 senior British police sources confirmed that some of Williams's work did indeed concern Russia, and other reports pointed to his secondment to the U.S. National Security Agency, where he traced international money laundering routes used by organized crime groups, including Moscow-based mafia cells. A 2024 case evidence review concluded that an independent forensic report found no new DNA or any suggestion that a third party was present at the time of Williams' death. Williams was buried at Innis Wen Cemetery in Valley, Anglesey on the 26th September 2010, following a private funeral service at Bethel Chapel in Holyhead, attended by his family, friends, former intelligence service colleagues, and the head of SIS, Sir John Soares. Thank you for listening to Gareth's story. He was not just a salacious headline, a spy in a bag, or an unsolved murder. Rather, he was a son, a keen outdoorsman, and a valuable part of keeping the UK safe. What do you think of this case, and what are the many remaining questions and theories? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, take care and stay safe.
A London coroner later said it's likely someone else was involved in his death. Service. That Williams was either poisoned or asphyxiated for more than a week. His body too badly decomposed him missing. No, for sure.
Report the spy missing for a week. I mean, how much is MI6 failing to blame for this, do you think?
Well, it's hard to know what Gareth Williams was involved in. Of course, he may have been on some kind of operation where he was not expected to come into Vauxhall Cross, the headquarters of the Secret Intelligence Service. But it seems from Sir John Soares' apology that wasn't the case, and that it was simply that his line manager didn't take the action that he should have taken. But it's one of the mysteries of this whole case. I mean, it seems as if it's ridden with inconsistencies and doubts.
Do you think MI6 is guilty of incompetence or worse?
Well, I don't know. They're not an incompetent organization. They're a superbly professional organization. But here something seems to have gone very wrong. And I think there are lots of things that have got to be investigated further. Who leaked this information about Gareth Williams' private life, even if it's true?